The modern Indiana Jones movies have been subjected to their fair share of flack, but it's important to recognize the things we actually enjoy about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Dial of Destiny. These movies may not live up to the lofty standards set by the original trilogy, yet they remain fun-filled action adventures with one of the most beloved pop culture icons leading the way. The Indiana Jones series represents some of Harrison Ford's best work, and it's a character he genuinely loves to play. Although there are plenty of naysayers out there who'll point to the ridiculousness of the nuke the fridge scene or hate on the inclusion of aliens, I believe it's time to shine a light on what those later movies got right. Even in old age, Harrison Ford still has the charm needed for the character. Harrison Ford looking upset in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. For all the qualms that viewers have with modern Indiana Jones sequels, nobody can deny that Harrison Ford still has what it takes to play the character. The suave charisma and intense screen presence of Raiders may be slightly diminished, but it's still clear that Ford is an all-time great leading man in Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. Some might have been calling for Ford to hang up his Indy hat for decades, but the truth is they still turn up to theaters for each installment, as there's always at least a glimmer of that old magic left. Even more so than Han Solo from Star Wars, Indy was the character Ford was born to play. The welcome return of Marion Ravenwood. An older Marion Ravenwood. Marion Ravenwood was a standout character in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and her chemistry with Indiana Jones was always a significant part of that classic film's appeal. While audiences always hoped for her return, Marion was noticeably absent from Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade, meaning viewers presumed they'd never see her again. However, Karen Allen returned to reprise her role in both Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, a fantastic casting decision that gives the modern movies an enjoyable connection to their acclaimed past. The reappearance of Marion taps into Indy's emotional history, and their fiery chemistry adds a nostalgic spark to the 21st century sequels. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull's 1950s setting works. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones and Shia LaBeouf as Mutt Williams search a cave in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The Indiana Jones movies have always reflected the time period in which they are set, with Indy famously facing off against 1930s Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. As an archaeologist with a deep understanding of the historical woes of his era, it was enjoyable to see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull address Cold War fears through its 1950s setting. The 1950s setting allowed Crystal Skull to embrace the pulp storytelling of the era. While some criticize the alien subplot as the franchise jumping the shark, extraterrestrials were a common metaphor in 1950s sci-fi, reflecting Cold War paranoia and society's fear of the unknown, making the film's choice thematically appropriate. The Area 51 escape in Crystal Skull is fun. Area 51 escape scene from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There are merits to many of the criticisms people point to about the modern Indiana Jones movies, but when looked at for pure entertainment value, they totally deliver. A prime example of this was the Area 51 escape scene in Crystal Skull, which was a solid piece of action filmmaking filled with great stunts set to John Williams' iconic score. While it might not go down in cinema history alongside the iconic opening scene of Raiders, only a true spoilsport would dismiss it entirely. This sequence channels the spirit of the original films as it blends tension, humor, and adventure in a way that was just plain fun. Phoebe Waller-Bridge adds spark to Dial of Destiny. Indy and Helena in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There was a feeling that Harrison Ford might be a little long in the tooth when Dial of Destiny was first announced, but there was one addition to the cast that made me stand up and take notice. That's because Fleabag's Phoebe Waller-Bridge joined the franchise as Indy's goddaughter, Helena Shaw. This ingenious casting decision brought a new comedic sensibility to the series and added to Waller-Bridge's impressive track record of contributing to major franchises following her screenwriter contributions to No Time to Die and voice work in Solo, a Star Wars story. While some took issue with Waller-Bridge's character, I didn't hate her performance. Mads Mikkelsen is always great as a villain. Mads Mikkelsen looking sinister in the shadows in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Whether it's playing Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, Gellert Grindled in Fantastic Beasts, or Dr. Jürgen Voller in Dial of Destiny, Mads Mikkelsen as a villain is always a welcome addition to any franchise. Mikkelsen is one of the great character actors of our time, and his portrayal of this sociopathic German scientist added to his impressive body of work. For all the aspects of modern Indiana Jones movies that viewers criticize, viewers see Mikkelsen's performance here as anything but great. With chilling intensity and impressive depth, Dr. Voller's twisted quest to turn American assets to his own benefit was an enjoyable spin on classic Indy themes of power, corruption, and violence. Dial of Destiny's time travel twist was a bold move. Indy, Harrison Ford, parachutes down to Syracuse in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. While we first saw supernatural concepts in Raiders and Crystal Skull introduced aliens to the franchise, Dial of Destiny pushed this even further through the inclusion of time travel. Although many felt this was a step too far, this bold move allowed the franchise to comment on its past and reinvent the series' mythos in a unique and interesting way. Those who hate on the franchise's later entries often act like the series hasn't been toying with sci-fi and fantasy concepts since the very beginning, and this felt like a natural evolution of Indy's increasingly extraordinary adventures. As the most famous fictional archaeologist of all time, it felt inevitable he would eventually travel to the past himself. A poignant farewell to Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones being grabbed in Dial of Destiny. The time travel twist in Dial of Destiny allowed Indiana Jones to actively participate in the past instead of simply studying it. Seeing him observe with awe and wonder the siege of Syracuse in 214 BC feels like a culmination of his career and transforms him from historian and adventurer into a living part of the history he's always revered.